One of the great inspirations for 30 years of my research wasn't a computer scientist.
And I don't know how you are, but I need a place to put my stuff. So that's what I've been doing back there, just trying to find a place for my stuff. You know how important that is. That's the whole meaning of life, isn't it? Trying to find a place for your stuff. That's all your house is. Your house is just a place for your stuff. If you didn't have so much goddamn stuff, you wouldn't need a house. You could just walk around all the time. That's all your house is. It's a pile of stuff with a cover on it.
That's the talk. A house is just a pile of stuff with a cover on it. Every interface I've built is a cover for a pile of stuff, and the pile kept getting bigger and kept changing what it was a pile of. 300 photographs. That was a whole life once. Someone born in the 1800s, gone by the 1950s, every picture ever taken of them, and you could look through all of it in an afternoon. A life now, one person takes about 7,000 pictures a year. We'll only ever look at a small fraction of them. The shoebox didn't get bigger, it overflowed. Those 7,000 pictures a year translate to more than 500,000 across a lifetime. A shoebox works because you can see all of it. That's the whole mechanism. Once a collection outgrows a glance, the overview dies, and the overview was the thing doing the work. Past a certain size, nobody sees everything, and someone chooses what you see. I started this journey at the MIT Media Lab back in 1989. I was working on virtual environments, the next big thing. It's been the next big thing at least twice since then, and it's still just around the corner. My thesis was about computational camera control. 3 problems, 1 engine. A virtual museum. Where do you stand? What do you look at? How long do you linger? A conversation between agents. When do you cut to the listener? Framing turns into turn-taking. A sports event. Where is the drama right now, and how do I get the camera there before it's over? The idea was to give an agent the grammar of storytelling, the shot, the cut, the eye line, the establishing wide, and let it do the filming. And I'll note, because I'd forgotten it myself until recently, I framed it as an AI agent at the time. A cinematographer doesn't move a camera, they make a shot. Over the shoulder, 2 shot. Those aren't camera positions, they're rhetorical moves. This is the grammar I chose. 100 years of cinema, and it comes down to 4 words. Scene, what happened. Shot, what's in the frame and what isn't. Cut, when to leave. Sequence, what order it lands in. Every one of those is a decision about what to leave out. That is the editorial act. And it gives you the line the rest of my career runs on. A camera doesn't show a scene. It makes an argument about what matters in it. Something is centered, something is out of frame. That's a claim, and somebody made it. When I joined Microsoft, I spent a few years in the Virtual Worlds group. Virtual social environments, the metaverse, the 1995 version of it. Then I wanted to revisit some of my thesis work, this time pointed at video games. Playing a game is fun. Watching someone else play one is mostly not. For a start, it makes most people a little nauseous. It's a raw first-person feed. One player, one pair of eyes, pointed wherever they happen to be looking. And somewhere off to the left of that frame, the actual match is being decided, and you'll never know. A match is a fire hose of events. Nobody wants the fire hose. Same events, same fire hose. The only thing that changed is that something decided where to look and when to leave. And it's the same engine, the museum, the conversation, the football field. The grammar is running automatically on a scene nobody storyboarded. We generalize that work into Microsoft's 5,000th patent, the whole idea of spectator gaming, not just the camera, and the very ground Twitch was standing on when it sold to Amazon in 2014 for roughly $1 billion. Oh well. I could have been a billionaire if an idea and a patent were all it took. But seriously, what we had was automatic summarization of a temporal event stream optimized for an audience. That used to take a person, a director in a broadcast truck, deciding what you get to see. Today you'd call it an agent cutting you a highlight reel. Everything so far came from a synthetic environment. Virtual worlds, games, scenes I built, a match whose every event I could enumerate. The camera had a script because I wrote the script. Now the world arrives by the shoebox load and nobody authored it. A pile of photographs has no plot, no shot list, no director. It is just stuff. So the question changes. It stops being, how do I film this story, and becomes, is there a story in here at all, and can I find it? But the grammar survives the move. Swap movie for collection. Swap it for data. Everything the film language knows about leaving things out still applies. It just has to work on a scene nobody wrote. The classic visualization pipeline, Card, McKinley, and Schneiderman 1999. Line the two up and it mostly fits. The shot is represent what's in frame, what you keep, what you throw away. The cut and sequence are render, when it lands and in what order. But look at the scene. It's two boxes, not one. The raw material and what that material means. A director gets both in one object because they were written together. The meaning came free. It was authored in advance. Hand me a pile of somebody's photographs and the meaning does not come free. Nobody wrote it. That's a real challenge, and one I've taken up over and over, a fresh transform in every project for 30 years. And then interact, the one box cinema never had. It isn't a fifth step in a line, it reaches back, ask a question, and it changes the ordering, changes the shot, changes what gets derived in the first place. It rewrites the other four on demand. A film isn't missing that feature. A film is just what you get when nobody in the theater can reach back. Now, one of the early projects on photo collections, from right when it began to overflow the shoebox. Thousands of photos, one screen. Cluster them in time into events. Lay them out to fit better on the screen, and then choose a representative image for each event. That's transform and represent, and the transform is real work. The clock gives you timestamps, not events. Deriving the events out of the timestamps was key. Here's what mattered, and it took me a while to see it. The unit stopped being the photograph. It became the event. Nobody remembers photograph number 4812, but they might remember the shot in front of the Leaning Tower on that trip to Italy. It's the moment from the event they hold on to, not the file name. Build the representation at the level of the event, and people can orient themselves inside a collection they never organized and refine things without ever naming anything. And around the same time, I was going at the same shoebox a different way, where Time Quilt derived the event from the clock. Media Frame pulls features straight out of the photos. I got to demonstrate this on stage with Bill Gates at CES in 2004, a surreal experience. Watch what's happening. Brush a selection and everything linked to it lights up. Filter and the collection reforms. Media Frame barely transforms at all. A face, a timestamp, a color, shallow features anybody can extract. What it does is lay the collection out, and the structure shows itself. Placement is the analysis. Nobody organizes a shoebox by indoor versus outdoor, but put the pile on a surface where that axis exists and you can see it. Every interaction technique, brushing, linking, filtering, laying out, comes back in Sandance in 10 minutes and in Photodance at the end. The same handful of interactions, 20 years apart. The only thing that changed underneath them is how much meaning I had to work with. Media Frame worked on a couple of shoeboxes worth of photos. The idea was already to start scaling up. Point that same idea at something far bigger, a whole life, and the challenges get real. That's the leap to my life bits. The dream is old. Vannevar Bush, 1945. Store everything and leave a trail someone else can follow. Gordon Bell tried to actually live it. Record a life. Keep all of it. The way you got at that life was closer to querying and paging through results across a few different views than to laying the whole thing out at once. When he saw the Media Frame interface, he wanted it as a new browser for My Life Bits. So we pointed Media Frame at it. A whole life, faceted, browsable. It couldn't handle the scale, rendering ground to a halt. Every interaction took seconds, and that's what killed it. The latency. Because below interactive rates, you stop exploring and start querying. And querying only ever finds what you already suspected. The whole point of an overview is that it shows you the thing you didn't think to ask for. You cannot make sense of a collection you have to wait for. And notice the pattern. Time Quilt found the event but couldn't scale meaning. Media Frame found the way you'd explore it, but only had shallow features. My Life Bits reached for the whole dream and died on latency. I wasn't solving this problem for 30 years. I was mapping its edges. Apply the same ideas to data instead of photographs and you get sand dance. Every point a place in the US, about 65,000 of them on one screen, colored by median income. It's media frame at 1,000 times the scale. And the nice thing about data, the attributes come already attached, nothing to extract. Place them and the structure shows itself. Nothing is ever destroyed, it only moves. Bar to scatter to map, following your own row. Don't cut between states, animate. The transition is where the insight lives. A cut throws that away. I'll let the clip run, but watch the interactions. Every one is straight out of media frame, 20 years and 1,000 times the scale later.
So I can switch this to income levels. And here now red represents low income and blue represents high income. And you're going, I don't see a lot of blue here. You know, there is blue scattered about, but mostly now things like LA, San Francisco, Seattle, Chicago, but you know, across the country it's looking pretty red. And in fact, if we view this as a column chart, in each one of these you can see a little bit of these blues. But again, if we sort by color, you can see that there's only a thin strip of blue in each of those longitudinal areas. We can switch this to income, and now we're looking at all the low income down here and all the higher income up here. You can see that most of the country is below and fairly low income. Okay? Poverty level is around 26K, and all of these counties are living with a median income below the poverty level. So let's delve down into this a little bit more deeply. Let's see what correlates with that. So I can switch this to a scatter plot. And one thing that we'll kind of logically look at is unemployment. Now, pretty much it makes sense that higher income means lower unemployment. It's this sort of curve that goes like that. And that makes sense. Affluent counties don't have that much unemployment. It's interesting if we change this to education, though, we get exactly that same curve. The higher the education, in general, the lower unemployment. That's pretty interesting. But we're also looking at color. We're looking at color meaning income. So again, the higher you go, in general, the bluer it gets. Except for a couple weird outliers. Here's a spot here that's got a lot of education, and by education we mean 95.6% of the people in this place have a bachelor's degree or higher. But they're not making much money according to this graph. They're only around there. So where is a place like this that has fairly high education and very low income? Well, let's take a look. Turns out that it's Stanford, California, where the median age is 23. These are students living on a student stipend, maybe working on their higher degrees and not making much money. Well, one point doesn't a pattern make, but here's another point. Let's take a look at that. That's Tompkins County of Forest Home. Where is Tompkins County? Well, I can click on it and just look it up in Bing and find out that that's the home of Cornell. So now I'm starting to see a pattern. If I switch this to income, again, the further education you have, more education you have, the further up you go on the income ladder, except for these places down here. And if I actually select all those places down here, let's take a look. Turns out that there's Stanford again. That's where Emory University is. That's where Dartmouth is. Cornell, more Cornell, and we also have Swarthmore. So essentially, these are all college towns, high education and low income.
A hypothesis is just a story you haven't tested yet. Science and storytelling run the same loop. Propose, look, revise, keep what survives. Exploration is how you find out which stories are true. Presentation is how you hand over the ones that are. Which is why I keep refusing to build an analysis tool and a presentation tool as two separate things. The machinery is the same machinery, and every time I built one that does both, it got better at both, because what makes a hypothesis cheap to test is exactly what makes a finding easy to show. Some of you will know the classic Pourali card sense-making loop, foraging on one side, the presentation on the other. It's usually drawn bottom up, raw data up to a finished story. And a lot of what I've shown you is exactly that. The event surfacing in TimeQuilt, the pattern you stumble onto in Sandance. The data really does push things up at you. But the loop runs both ways. The story you're chasing also shapes what you go looking for. So the presentation isn't the afterthought at the end. It's in the loop the whole time, pulling as much as it's pushed. That reverse loop isn't just a neat idea, it's how people actually work. Almost nobody forages up from the raw data and waits for a conclusion to surface. They start with a conclusion and go looking for support, which is what makes the phrase "this whole field repeats" a fiction. Let the data speak for themselves. 3.5 million results on Google. The most repeated sentence in this field. Everybody nods. It has never once been true. Let me show you how untrue that is. Here's one run of jobs numbers. Same recession, same agency, argued back and forth through Obama's 2012 re-election. Watch what each side does with it. The so-called bikini graph. Obama, 2012. Plot the monthly change, not the total, and the bars climb back towards zero like a recovery the moment the Democrats came back into power. The Republican answer, plot the total, not the change, and now nothing is recovering. And a keen-eyed observer will notice they cut the chart off at exactly the point where, on the previous slide, job growth had started to climb. The chart on the right compares how quickly another recent recession recovered, this time under the Reagan administration. Then widen the window, 2001 to 2012. Nothing about 2009 changed. The years on either side arrived, and now the crater has an owner. Or just average the unemployment rate over each administration. Clinton, Bush, Obama. Obama's bar towers over the rest, except that average is dominated by the crater he inherited in 2009. It measures what he walked into, not anything he did. Percent change, first day to last, colored by party, and you can see the results for the entire time a party is in power. Now normalize to peak, a line at month 0. Comparison class, post-war recessions. Verdict, the worst thing in living memory, and it isn't close. Same recession. Change the year range, and we can see the previous red line against the Great Depression. This latest recession was absolutely nowhere near as bad. Or against the financial crises. Spain, Norway, Finland, Sweden, Japan, and the United States beat every one of them. 7 charts, not one of them lied. Every number came from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now count where the arguments got made. The derivative instead of the level. The window, the aggregation, the percent change, the comparison class. Every single argument was made before anything was drawn. Which should bother you. Everything we teach about lying with charts is about the picture. Truncated axes, bad color, 3D. Not one of these needed any of it. The argument was already won upstream. And this isn't how to lie with statistics, that one needs a liar. Nobody lied here. That's the part that should bother you. Transform is the box that people think that AI does for free. When an AI picks the aggregation, chooses the comparison, decides the window, it is not just preparing your data. It is making the argument before you see a pixel, and it will not tell you it did. There is no neutral representation. The only question is whether you chose yours on purpose. You can go further than framing. You can stop plotting the number at all. Top left, the men's 100-meter final. 8 names, 8 times. Bolt 9.63, Powell 11.99. You read it, you know who won. You feel nothing. That gap is 2.36 seconds, a number. Bottom left, same 8 times run. Now you're in lane 4 and Bolt is gone. That's what 2.36 seconds is. Top right, the tallest buildings on Earth is a bar chart. Burj Khalifa, 828 meters. Correct, legible, forgettable. Bottom right, the same buildings and you're standing at the bottom of them next to the Eiffel Tower. Same data both times. One you read, one happens to you. That's data visceralization. This one's VR, actually. I came back to it for a few projects during the last big metaverse wave. It receded again, naturally. And it works. People remember it. And the uncomfortable part, they believe it more, which makes it a weapon, which doubles the stakes from the last 10 minutes. A chart makes an argument, but you can still argue back. A feeling, you can't, you just believe it. So the more a representation moves you, the more the honesty is on whoever built it. After 30 years, and honestly, after retiring, I circled back. Retiring came with a freedom I'd never really had, to chase a problem because it mattered to me, not because it had to make the company $200 million, which, at Microsoft Research, was about the bar a project needed to clear to be worth doing. Same problem I never solved, but on a collection that was deeply personal. Our collection of photographs. This is Photo Dance. Lourdes took them, 30 years of our family, and she was the one holding the camera. The only authorial act in that whole archive is the shutter, what she pointed at. Nothing was ever removed. Amazon uploads everything so every frame survives, the bad ones included. Almost nothing is rated, almost nothing edited. Not because she didn't care, but because the tools are tedious. If rating a photo is expensive, nobody rates anything. That's not a user failure, it's my field's failure. 200,000 photographs, 30 years of our life. Every trip, every face, every moment that mattered is in here somewhere, and the pile got far too big to see. This is Photo Dance, and here's how it helps us find the meaning again. Take one photo. To us, it's a couple, in front of a mosaic in Barcelona. To a computer, it's only this, a grid of numbers. Who's in it, where it was, whether it mattered. None of that is in the pixels. That's what Photo Dance works out. And it doesn't start from nothing. Every photo carries a hidden tag the camera wrote, the date, the camera, and often the location. Before Photo Dance reads a single pixel, that tag already tells it a lot. Here's the whole archive, every photograph represented by a single point, laid out and stacked across the years with each photo painted its dominant color. We start in 1999 and end with the most recent year. That long stretch of blue in 2011 is from whale watching in Cabo. We can hover over any point and see a thumbnail of the picture. This patch of red is from the Tulip Festival. If we zoom close enough, we can see small versions of the pictures themselves. This overview lets us see our picture-taking habits. You can see the dip in photos taken during COVID here. If you're curious when in the day a picture was taken, we can switch to a grid view. Laid out as a grid of year by time of day, with 12 a.m. at the top of the screen and 11:59 p.m. at the bottom, the dip shows across every hour, and in the small hours of the morning it falls to almost nothing when we were home, asleep. In this flat view, it's hard to feel the size of the change. Switch to a stacked three-dimensional view, each tower a pile of photos, and the COVID years fall away into a deep chasm. And where the camera saved a location, we can lay everything out on a map, everywhere we've been. Pan, zoom, select, and filter, all by where a photo was taken. Back to the timeline. Double-click any year and it breaks open, the same photos rearranged by month. Here's 2022, and December was a year-end trip to Mexico. Go one level further and it breaks down by day. And at any point, we can browse whatever we're focused on, paging through larger versions of the photos or double-clicking to see a photo at full size and zoom in to see it in detail and get everything the camera saved. But the camera only recorded so much. So we set out to teach the collection what each picture actually holds. We go through a series of steps to get these photos into Photo Dance and make the collection more usable. We won't talk about them all, just some highlights. More than 227,000 photos pour in, from cloud services like Amazon, Google, and Apple Photos, and from higher-end cameras cataloged in Lightroom. A very big shoebox. And they don't arrive empty. The platforms had already clustered faces and detected objects, and we'd done our own work. We starred our favorites, named a few faces, and made albums. Rather than throw any of it away, Photo Dance keeps it all as a starting point. But many of those files are copies. Exact duplicates are dropped in a blink. Near copies, a JPEG of a HEIC. A visual fingerprint catches, even when the bytes differ. And bursts of nearly the same shot fold together, surfacing the best and keeping the rest. 250,000 files becomes about 160,000 real photos. So much of our life is in these photos, and so much of that is the people in them. Pin down who's who, and everything else about a photo gets richer. Amazon started the work, clustering faces across many photos, labels, but not where each face sits. Photo Dance continues it, adding more clusters of its own, and finding where each face sits in every photo. When a photo has just one face, its label is certain, and that certainty spreads to the crowded photos, sorting out who's who. We confirm the guesses Amazon made or add the ones it missed, and each name we add flows onto every other photo that person is in. Now the payoff. Ask for one person, Renata, and every photo she's in across nearly 30 years gathers in a heartbeat, a whole life in pictures, selected from the pile in an instant. Now ask for another, here's Rosa, and every picture that has both Renata and Rosa are just a click away. Finally, we filter by Ruth, and we can find every picture Renata is in with her two grandmothers. Photodance's philosophy is to keep nearly everything, but to help us surface what's worth seeing. We use many different vision models to help with this. They read the pixels and return a number for sharpness, for that soft blurred background, for how striking a photo is. Several models, each with an opinion, and every picture lands somewhere on each curve. But best depends on who's asking. Trained on what the internet admires, these scores disagreed with the photos we'd actually starred. So we tune one more model to our own taste, and the more we rate, the more it reflects what we like. We can use any of these scores to sort or filter the collection. Every archive has throwaways. Lay the photos out by brightness, and the near black frames pull to one end. We grab them, flip through, all unusable, and in a single gesture, keep everything but those. We do the same for sharpness. The blurriest slide out to the edge, and out they go too. We don't delete them. You never know when the only shot of a moment is a dim, blurry one. So instead of throwing them away, we build a working set of just the keepers, everything sharp and bright enough, and the rest sit outside it, out of sight until we want one. The large-scale AI Open Network, or Lion model, is one of many that we compute. We can select the top-scoring pictures from it and browse them. It prioritizes a generic human visual appeal, and you'll see some classic paintings from our collection scoring highly. Sort by Nima instead, and the taste turns technical. Clean geometry, strong lines, a well-built frame. Ask for a National Geographic eye, and it hunts for the striking. A bold subject, a soft background, the frame that could run in the magazine. But the judge that matters most is our own. Our taste, tuned to the photos we actually starred, lands on a different mix again. The ones we'd keep. But more than appearance, we want the meaning of a photo. A model places every photo as a point in a vast space where nearness means similar meaning. Beaches near beaches, food near food, faces in a neighborhood of their own. And words live in that same space. Forest, flowers, a sandy beach. Each word drops into the region where those photos gather. So when we ask for something, outdoor art, it lands right where this photo sits. And meaning becomes something you can look up. So far the photo has scores and coordinates, but no one has put it into words. A model reads the pixels, patch by patch, and writes a sentence, one word at a time. A smiling couple in front of a colorful mosaic. Pixels became language. But it's a stranger's sentence. It sees what's there, not who they are or where. But we know who, the faces told us, and we can find where. Remember that luggage tag, the raw coordinate the camera wrote down? Look it up against a map of the world and it becomes a place, Parkway in Barcelona. Now we have the pieces the sentence was missing. Fuse them in and it rewrites itself. The strangers, a smiling couple, becomes Lourdes and Stephen at Parkway in Barcelona. No single model knew that sentence. The vision model couldn't name them. The map couldn't see. It took all of them together to write it. No one remembers a single photo. They remember the moment, a dinner, a hike, an afternoon. Photodance folds photos into events, events into outings, and outings into whole trips. A hierarchy, each one sized by how many photos it holds. Photodance labels each from the captions inside it, so the collection becomes a browsable shelf of named moments. Here's a single year, 2018. When we open the event view, Photodance watches for the gaps between your shots, and every time you stop shooting for a while, it closes one event and opens the next. No tags, no folders. The rhythm of when you photograph does the cutting, and each block is a moment it named on its own. The strip beneath each card is the actual photos linked to the event. We can see right away how many pictures make up the event, and hovering over a photo brings up a thumbnail and highlights the corresponding event. Step back, and the events gather up, outings in blue, and the trips that hold them in green. Take our long European trip through France, Spain, and Germany. Double-click the trip and it opens into its sub-trips and where each one went. Let's open up Spain, which held our strolls through Park Güell, the Dalí Museum, and cycling along the Costa Brava, and any event can be browsed to see the photos inside. Photodance uses these events to share information between photos. Our old cameras had no GPS, but our phones did. Take one afternoon watching whales from the shore in Maui, nearly 800 shots from the big camera, none with a location of its own, but interspersed among them in time, a handful of iPhone photos that did. Each stranded shot simply borrows the location of the nearest phone photo in time. Do that across the whole collection and nearly 9,000 more photos land on the map, from about 66,000 located to 75,000. So a photo can borrow what its neighbors already know. Every layer we've added is a guess. Who a face is, where a shot was taken. And guesses can be wrong. But the same browsing, filtering, and selecting we use to explore is also how we check them. When a view surfaces something that can't be right, we open it. For example, we can search for Renata's grandfather Arlindo and find him across the collection. But he passed away in 2015, and there are pictures of him later than that. Here he is in 2016. The view didn't hide that contradiction. It surfaced it. Open it. And it's an old print scanned years later. The date is when it was digitized, not when it was taken. One click and we set it right. Select, filter, browse. The ordinary grammar of looking is also how we check what the machine believed. Now let's find things we'd nearly lost. Renata at the piano with her other grandfather Arno, a concert pianist, gone in 2019. Search for it by words, and there it is. Take our favorite dinner in Barcelona. We couldn't remember the name, but we remembered going up to the rooftop for pictures before our table was ready. Ask for that, and Photodance narrows it down to the place. The wonderful food. The name on the door, even the menu. But the real power is that it's all one space, seen from different perspectives. Find a single memory, sea turtles hatching one dawn. Put those photos on the map. Was it Mexico, Hawaii, the Galapagos? So lift them into time, different shores, different years, each visit its own thread. Move between the views, and the meaning reassembles, the where and the when. The one morning the sand came alive. And to feature just one frame by a National Geographic eye, the striking, not the merely sharp. The best rises to the top, a beach in the morning sun, 100 new turtles making for the sea. A lifetime of photos doesn't mean much if you can't find your way through it, and that's what Photodance is for, making 30 years of pictures something you can actually explore. What you just saw is the box that stalled on My Life Bits. Interact, finally working, 20 years later. Here it's 225,000 of our pictures, deduplicated, quality scored, clustered into events, GPS interpolated, face indexed, 19,725 burst groups collapsed, the whole archive as one moving field of points at 60 frames a second, which those of you awake 10 minutes ago will recognize as Sand Dance, pointed at my family. It isn't a prototype built to get a paper out. It's a way for us to actually look at our own collection, a very different design brief, and a much better one. The camera that spent 30 years framing everything else finally came home. 2004, face presence, day or night, the date off the EXIF, dominant color. That's what a machine could notice about a photograph. 2026, not face presence but face recognition. Not day-night, but a caption of what's happening. Whether it's any good, which event it belongs to. That's not 4 features becoming 10, it's a change of kind. The machine used to notice things about the pixels. Now it knows what the photograph is about. Same move as media frame. Place the pile, let the structure show itself. I didn't have a new idea. I had the old idea, finally running on meaning. 2 things were never available at the same time. Meaning you could derive, that's what media frame never had, and performance fast enough to explore. That's what killed My Life Bits. Both are here now. This is one exemplar of how good the answers get once you have both. If one person can get this far in a few months, the space of good answers is wide open and almost none of it has been built yet. AI fills the front of the pipeline now, so we don't have to. That doesn't mean it's for free. You just watched a transform decide an argument 7 times, and a model doing that step is making those same choices silently. So the first 2 boxes don't vanish. They become something you verify and direct rather than build by hand. But the interesting work was always transform, finding the one that makes the last 3 boxes useful to a person. Not the most sophisticated transform, the one that gives someone something to stand on. It never generalized, though. Every project had its own answer, and the last 3 always ran at the wrong level. You explored timestamps and color histograms when what you wanted was what the stuff was about. That's what's changed now. We have an entirely new possibility. Operating at the level of meaning, not just raw features or pixels. The last 3 boxes are still ours, still unsolved, but a whole new altitude to be working at. Represent what's worth showing. The model derives structure for free now. That's not the same as structure a person can hold in their head. Use the one to build the other. Render, where does it go? A chat log has no geography, no position constancy, no spatial memory, nothing to refine, nothing to point at. An answer is not an interface, and prose is not a layout. This is the widest open ground in our field. Interact. How fast can they ask again? Below interactive rates, exploring collapses into querying, and querying only finds what you already suspected. If the second question is expensive, people stop at the first. And the first question is never the good one. And underneath all 3, the thing from the very beginning, somebody is telling a story whether you designed it or not. The model has a camera. It's framing, right now, in every answer it gives. Choose the shot, or one will be chosen for you. Carlin got there first. The meaning of life, he said, is finding a place for your stuff. 30 years, and I never wanted a place for it. I wanted the story in it. Because the stuff of life is just stuff, until someone tells you the story behind it. So just make sure it's a story worth telling.